The 49ers take the field against the Bears. We'll talk about it next on our Nate's Nonsense. Hello and welcome. My camera is doing weird stuff to Niner Nate's Nonsense. I don't know what the hell's going on, but the show goes on. The Niners are about to play football here on Sunday. I'm sure a lot of you are watching the Rams and the Buffalo Bills while my camera is blurrier than shit. But Niner Nate here with you once again, as always, at least once a week, as long as I can get on here at some point, because of the fact that life has been so busy. And with me, as always, is the one and the only Niner Kevin and Jamal Armstrong. How are you doing, guys?
I'm doing
Kevin,
very well,
you are muted.
Doing awesome, man. Hey, congratulations on your new job. It's awesome.
I appreciate it. I'm absolutely exhausted. It's a lot. Apparently, my camera has decided that it's exhausted too, and has decided that screw being, any bit of actually looking good on camera, I turn the light on and off, doesn't change anything. This is terrific. Oh my God. It's been an interesting week. That's all I can say. There's football on right now. If you're not watching, the Rams and the Bills in your other window, then what are you doing? We get to watch the Rams and Matthew Stafford, who's probably washed, Bobby Wagner, who's definitely washed, and Cooper Kupp, who might be a god. So make sure you have that on in your other window, but also pay attention to us, because we're going to talk a lot about the Niners, and we're going to talk a lot about this Bears game, and I'm going to let you and Kevin talk real quick, Jamal, while I fix this camera. I will be right back.
Yeah, man, no problem. I know you were asking, how we were doing, and I have to say I've been doing pretty well myself. It's good always to be back with you guys. I enjoy talking football with you guys especially, and always excited every week to do a show with you guys. But also, with this being week one, I know there's just like a different type of air, floating around. It just feels a little bit different. The excitement of football is back. I actually have, the football game on in the background as well, too. So I'm just glad that we have football back. I love Josh Allen. He's one of my favorite players in the league, so it's fun watching him.
Not better than Patrick Mahomes.
And I'm looking forward to watching Trey Lance. We won't even talk about Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes right now. We don't need to do that. I'm most excited about Trey Lance. I'm looking forward to what he can add to this team.
We're going to speak a lot about Trey Lance. We're not going to talk about Josh Allen. We're going to talk a lot about Justin Fields. And we're going to sit around and talk for about 45 minutes about this big Bears game. Get you ready for kickoff on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Make sure you got your coffee ready. I think I'm going to go run to the donut wheel first thing in the morning, get me some donuts, and just plop it in front of my television, hang out with the Niners for a game, and then go head over to my boy and NFL Red Zone for the rest of the day while I play video games. So it should be a great Sunday. Let's talk about the 49ers game. We got the Bears, one of the worst teams in football. Dante Pettis is on their receiving core. That's how you know they're bad, because he stinks. And then you've got David Montgomery, who's actually pretty good, an offensive line that's absolute dog shit, and then a defense that is really I can't really name much about that defense. I think Michael Brockers is on that defense. And if we're afraid of Michael Brockers, then we have more issues.
They have Lamar Jackson.
No, they don't.
Stop it. Yeah, they do. He's like a
They
corner,
have a Lamar
right?
Jackson as their second corner, as one of their second corners.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
You're right. Huh?
Yeah.
That's weird.
They also have Robert Quinn.
Robert Quinn, not Michael Brockers.
But
I'm sorry, Robert Quinn. I get them confused because they were both on the damn Rams.
Robert Quinn's he's a good pass rusher. He's pretty good. He's the only guy on their line that I would say he might be able to get some sort of pressure. But like you said, there's not a lot of guys there outside of like Roquan Smith. Obviously, they have a couple good safeties back there as well too.
Roquan, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Roquan's pretty good. They got a couple guys, but like you said, it's one of the worst rosters in the league, if not the worst. They should be in contention for a top pick this year. This should be
absolutely, yeah. They should be absolutely in a contention for a top pick. So I mean, for a first game for Trey Lance to, start his NFL career for the most part. I think this is as good as it gets. I think the only game that would be better would be the Seattle Seahawks because they are fucking awful. I'm so excited. Next week, we're going to try and get Jason Puckett on here, and we're just going to spend a whole fucking hour talking about the Seahawks and how dog shit they are because, damn. Like Will Smith said in that movie in Men in Black, he says, damn, because the Seahawks are fucking awful. But then let's talk about the Bears. Sorry. Let's talk about the Bears. Another awful football team. This week Justin Fields basically came out and said that he is mad and has a grudge against the 49ers. And I'm going to explain why I think this is, and then I want to hear your guys' explanations specifically. But I think it's because the Bears suck. If the Bears were a good football team, I don't think he'd give a shit where he was drafted. And it's kind of showing a little piece of, Justin Fields, who I really respected in college. But for him to be like, I have a grudge against them and blah, 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 and all this crap. And it's like, well, you're not content the fact that you're on an NFL team and you're a starting quarterback. And I understand, like, they're a bad organization. They probably shouldn't have drafted you because they're so far off being able to compete. It's insane. But at least be appreciative of what you have,
I'm going to be honest. I'm actually going to disagree with you on this one, Nate. I haven't heard Justin Fields say too much. I've heard Darnell Mooney say a lot for Justin Fields, trying to act like he's that guy. But I do agree with you in this. He didn't want to be – I mean, I don't want to say he didn't want to be because I think he's happy that he was drafted. I think he'd play anywhere. He's a professional athlete, right, who has supreme talent. He's a very talented quarterback. He can do pretty much anything on the football field. He's 4.4 speed, can throw the heck out of the ball. I think he does process the game pretty well. His mechanics aren't insanely great, but let's be real. There's a lot of quarterbacks whose mechanics aren't like perfect, right? And they're still good quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson's made strides all throughout his career. So I look at a guy like Justin Fields and I say, yeah, you're right. He's in a bad situation in terms of where he was drafted to. Usually the teams that pick decently high or to that high don't have great rosters. Trey Lance obviously is in a situation a little bit different, and clearly we'll talk about him today as well too. But when I look at Justin Fields and where I agree with you is the fact that, yes, he's a supremely talented quarterback. He's got to have supreme belief in himself, but let's not lie and act like he wouldn't have wanted to be drafted by the 49ers. You guarantee more money in your pocket being the 3rd overall pick versus what pick was he again? I don't even remember. A teens pick. I forgot exactly his pick number.
He was the 11th overall pick.
Right before Mac Jones, then, right? 11 and then 12.
So the Bears, I'm actually looking up the draft order right now, but the Bears moved up to number 11 to take
Yeah,
Fields.
that's right. That's right.
And,
they moved up to get him.
The New England Patriots took Mac Jones at 15. So,
right.
Which it's really interesting. So, at number 12, the Cowboys took Micah Parsons. So they jumped up in front of Dallas to take Fields, which is kind of interesting because the Cowboys didn't need a quarterback, the Chargers didn't need a quarterback, and the Jets had just selected Zach Wilson.
So, and it's interesting too, right? Because I don't think anyone, I shouldn't say anyone, the majority of people didn't expect Justin Fields to drop out of the top 10. I didn't. I personally thought he wouldn't drop past probably 6 just because of the value at the position of being a quarterback. He was just coming up. He had a great college career. I'll give him that. It was a good college career. And he was coming off of arguably one of his better games against Clemson, right? He got beat a couple times, and he showed that he had some extra toughness in him to still gut that game out and played very, very well in that game. So you look at those things and you say, go ahead.
I was just saying, what's interesting, just looking back at the draft order, I remember when Carolina's pick came up, I thought, okay, this would be a good landing spot for Fields because he's going to have CMC. He's got some good playmakers. And they're building a defense. And then when they passed on him, the Broncos were sitting there at 9. I'm like, how could they not take him? They have, Teddy Bridgewater, I believe at the time.
They have a bridge quarterback and nobody else.
And Drew Lock.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, they're going to take him at 9. And then they took Surtain, who's a stud. So
he's nice.
So yeah, the next team was definitely Chicago because they got rid of Trubisky the year before.
Right.
So.
And I know I'm ranting here, Nate. I'll wind up with this. I'll close with this. So my thing with Justin Fields is, listen, there's been a lot of other players. I shouldn't say a lot. It's been a lot of Darnell Mooney talking, I would say, like hyping his quarterback up. And I get that. I would do the same if I was one of the players on his football team. In terms of Justin Fields, my main point is, yes, I think he would rather be a top 3 pick. Who wouldn't? It's a better situation. But I also think he has supreme belief in himself that he can help build this team, which is the Chicago Bears, over the course of the next few years. If everything goes right for him, he should play football for 10 plus years, right? So I think he has belief in that. But clearly right now, he's on a different playing field than Trey Lance. Trey Lance is in a much better situation. It's totally different. I respected Justin Fields kind of shooting those rumors down by saying he hadn't really heard about it, what Darnell Mooney had said, and then reporters were asking him questions about it, and he chose to say, you know what, I was drafted where I was drafted. He did say, I'm glad that I was not drafted by the 49ers. I don't think that's true. I think what he was trying to say is he's glad where he ended up, and he has belief in himself to potentially grow that team. So I can respect that, but also, like, I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like Trey Lance's situation isn't better. He would love to be in that.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, it's really interesting. I think Chicago is one of those places where, they're going to probably look to trade Roquan Smith. They're going to get a decent draft pick for him. They lost Khalil Mack, and I believe they lost one of their pieces on their offensive line too. So I look at that football team and think, he's got, 3 more years on his rookie contract, and if he plays well, they're going to extend him. But I could see a potential situation to where he moves to another team at some point. Maybe they trade him. They try to get maybe like a 2nd or 3rd round pick, not because he stinks, but just because maybe it's just not a good fit for him. And at that point, other teams are probably going to be looking for a quarterback. That's going to remain to be seen because every quarterback situation differs every single season. But I could see Fields one of these guys like Trubisky. He was drafted early by the Bears. He's gone around to a couple teams, and now he's starting it on the Steelers, right? So I could see a potential situation where that happens for him, not because he's a bad talent, just because it's just not a fit for what they're trying to do. And if they don't eventually build up the roster like the 49ers have, they're just going to keep putting him in a position to where he can't succeed. And so I like Justin Fields out of college. My analysis of him was he's got a phenomenal, probably the best deep ball of anybody in that draft. I mean, he throws a beautiful long deep ball. He's athletic as hell. He's good at evading the rush, and he's great with his legs. For me, the only thing, and his processing speed is good. For me, just coming out of Ohio State, he just didn't come out of a pro-style system, and he wasn't really ever under center. And that's one of the other reasons why I was surprised that everybody was high when we were thinking about taking Mac Jones, because he was in the shotgun a lot. Lance played in a pro-style offense and played under center a lot. That's important in the NFL. It's changing to more of a spread kind of hybrid style, but it's still important. The fundamentals of football in the Shanahan offense, you got to play under center. You got to command the huddle from under center and read the defense from there, not from shotgun. So I think the Niners obviously made the right choice, but I think Fields is still a phenomenal talent. I think he just landed in a spot where they're not going in the right direction. They're going in the wrong direction.
I mean, that's the biggest problem. You get drafted by a bad team and you're just stuck on a roster that's not going anywhere. And I think that's his biggest problem is he's on a team that's not going to do anything. They're not hyped to go to the playoffs. They're not hyped to do anything. And their best receiver is Darnell Mooney. And we can talk about Darnell Mooney and how he's probably not that bad. But
he's good. He's a good wide receiver too.
He's a good wide receiver too. Exactly. That's where I was going with that. He's not that bad as a wide receiver too. He's not a wide receiver one. And so this new look 49ers defense with these corners, I think are really going to lock these guys down. I think this will be an okay game to play at George Odom because of the fact that you're not really worried about them throwing the ball all over you. This isn't a team that's going to, have, Stephon Diggs and frickin' Gabriel Davis thrown at you all day. This is Darnell Mooney, Dante Pettis, and I don't even think they have N'Keal Harry. He's hurt. So, I mean,
yeah, N'Keal Harry's out.
My biggest thing for them is they need to stop the run game in this. That's my number one thing for them to beat the Bears is they have to stop the Bears run game. That's the number one thing. That's how you win this game. You just don't let them run the ball over you.
Yeah, I think last year, was it Khalil Herbert was going off on us, and he was gassed and really interesting. And Larry Krueger said something kind of interesting as well on one of his shows. He says that the 49ers interior defensive line is going to be key throughout the entire season because we're not able to stop the run. We've seen that we have problems on defense.
Is he cutting
despite
out
how good our pass rush
or
is?
Is it just me?
Yes, I thought it was me. I wasn't sure if it was me.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Your internet, you're cutting out a little
You're
bit.
good. You sound good now, right?
You're fine now.
Oh, I sound good. Okay. So I was just saying that we've had problems stopping the run interiorly. So that's where Kinlaw is going to come in. I mean, if Kinlaw can be almost to the same level as DJ Jones, we'll be fine. But that's kind of the thing that I was saying that Larry Krueger on his show was saying that we had at some points in the season last year, we had trouble stopping the run, not on the edges. We were fine on the edges, but interior. So for me, if Armstead, who should be playing inside 100% of the time, and Javon Kinlaw play well, this should be a cakewalk of a game. But if for some reason the Bears start running all over us, Fields is running for 10, 12 yards a play, Montgomery's having 5-6 yards of carry, Khalil Herbert goes off, we could be in trouble. But for the most part, not likely. But yeah, I mean, stopping the run is definitely going to be a big key in this game.
Could not agree with you more, Kevin. Funny enough, I was just talking with my dad about this yesterday. We talked for like a little over an hour, and he was asking me some questions just about the season. You know, he asked me about Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, that dynamic. But I said the same thing that you said as well. It's going to start with, and this is really, if we're going to be honest, I think this is about any team if you can stop the run game, because I think the run game helps keep teams on schedule. You're able to be in, second and manageable, third and shorts, things like that. And with, let me be nice, with the weapons that or I should say lack of weapons that the Bears have, especially at their skill position spots outside of running back, because I do actually think David Montgomery is a good back. I think Khalil Herbert, I've been hearing he had a really good camp, and he's actually pushing David Montgomery for like starter reps. And I think Khalil Herbert is going to be their running back of the future. Like sooner rather than later, he's probably going to take over RB1 duties. That's my personal opinion. But then you look at guys like Byron Pringle, who was wide receiver 4 for the Chiefs last year. That doesn't mean he's trash or anything like that, because the Chiefs are the Chiefs, right? But he was more of a specialty type receiver. You've got obviously Dante Pettis. 49ers fans were very much aware of him. And while Dante Pettis has some really good traits, I think he's honestly he's a good route runner, because he runs his routes like slightly different. He's a bit more, this might not make sense to some people, but I kind of view him as like a spindly type receiver. He runs routes longer, but also like different than his actual height. I think he's only like 6'1", but he like runs them a little bit like longer, if that makes sense. And then you look at Velus Jones, the kid that they just drafted as well. I believe he's like 25 years old, so he's a bit more of a mature rookie, but he's still a rookie making his first start. And he's a speed guy, exactly. He's the only guy that I see as a true deep down the field threat, which Justin Fields could take advantage of. I just don't think that this kid is going to be, not that he's not ready, I don't expect much from him in his first game. I mean, you can look at the Niners on the flip side, and we have Danny Gray, who's also a speed threat as well, and we hope he has a good season, but I don't see Velus Jones going off to be probably like their wide receiver 2, at least not to start the season. So I look at this game and I say, Cole Kmet, their tight end, he's a guy who could potentially go off, just because I think tight ends, I'd say go off, but I can see his numbers being solid to really good, because a tight end is a young wide receiver, young quarterback's best friend, as well as the fact that I think the Niners are going to consistently get pressure on Justin Fields. I think the game ultimately is going to be a little bit closer than people expect, but I don't think it's going to be all that close. I still think the Niners win this game by 10. Yeah.
You know what's interesting, just real quick before Nate chimes in, we're seeing kind of, again, the Rams and the Bills tonight, some weird stuff happens. I mean, Josh Allen looked like he had a reception and it was taken out of the receiver's hands. And, there's turnovers all over the place because teams are still trying to figure out who they are, right? They're trying to gauge where they're at as a team and not just also play the opponent, right? So there's some weird stuff. And we know in week ones, we've had some weird week 1 matchups as well. In 2019 against Tampa Bay, we had 2 interceptions returned for a touchdown, right? If we didn't have those, the game would have been tied in the fourth quarter. And last year we were up big. We were up like 41-17, and the Lions came back within 2 minutes and almost tied the game. So week 1s are
how much was that because of Jimmy Garoppolo being ass?
When?
That injuries, just the change in momentum. That game was weird at the end down the stretch.
That game was weird.
Yeah. Well, so what I'm just saying in general is like week 1 is a little bit weird. Like some weird stuff happens. You kind of have to push through it and just be mentally tough. And usually the team that's more mentally tough week 1 comes out, and then you can kind of get your sea legs under you. Week 2 always looks a little bit better. You kind of know who you are. You know you're used to the people that you're playing with. We're going to have some new pieces in the secondary. So it's just kind of like figuring out who you are, and just if you can stay mentally tough and limit those dumb mistakes, usually the team comes out on top.
So I want to ask you guys a couple questions. Niners related things. Obviously, I think we all think we're going to beat the Bears, and we'll talk. We'll give score predictions at the very end. Couple subjects I'd like to talk to you guys about for the next 20 minutes. The first one is, how do you feel about Mike McGlinchey? It doesn't seem like he's been on the injury. There's been no talk of his injury at all. Sounds like he's going to play on Sunday. I mean, how do you feel about him being the starting tackle and protecting Trey? Obviously, against a team that's not very good, but still, there was that video going around where it looked like he was in some pain, but he hasn't been on any injury reports. And then the other question I have for both of you is, how do you feel about George Kittle? Because it looks like he's probably not going to play. It looks like his groin injury is pretty bad. Is this guy just never healthy for us? I understand he's still probably the best tight end in the entire NFL, but how many times is too many times with this injury before we kind of have to figure something else out? So we can start with Kevin, or we can start with Jamal, whoever wants to go first. Those are the two questions I'd love for you guys to answer.
Go ahead, Jamal.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, no, go ahead. You
go ahead. Okay. So I'm actually okay. I'm okay with Mike McGlinchey. Funny enough, I actually think the Niners do I don't want to say a good job, because when real injuries pop up, I think they're kind of hush-hush about it. But he has been, like you've been saying, he's been practicing. He's not showing up on injury reports. I like that. I have to, because it's so, well, technically for us, our season hadn't started yet, right? So I'm only going off hope that he's good, and I'm hoping that he's going to be good for the majority of the season, if not the whole season. I think, and I told this to my dad last night as well, too. In my personal opinion, this season rides on the offensive line, like straight up. If we have, and honestly, I don't think we don't have a lot of room for error. We don't have a lot of room for injuries, long-term injuries especially. So the concern there with Mike McGlinchey, for sure, right? He's just coming off of a major injury. It is what it is. It's a major injury. And it sounds like, and just the way, because I've heard him talk about it a couple times over the past, month or so, when he's had media availability as well, too. He does give a lot of credit to the 49ers staff and the 49ers trainers, things like that. He says that they've gotten him ready quicker and I think further along than he expected to be at this point. And I don't think that he would just say that if he didn't feel like he was healthy enough to play. So I'm going off of the hope. I wouldn't even say the prayer. I'm going to go off the hope that he's going to be okay. The fact that we haven't seen him really miss too much time. Now, they've been slowly bringing him back. I get that. But he hasn't actually, from what I've seen or heard, he hasn't had actual setbacks. So I'm going off the hope that he's going to be okay. What I'm going to look at after this game, though, should he make it all the way through, how does he respond from playing a complete game? Playing a full game, is he able to wake up the next day and feel okay? Will he then have a setback? Those are the questions I have. So I'm optimistic that he's good to go. It sounds like he's good to go. How does he respond after playing a full game? Will he be then good to go for the majority of the season? Will he have any setbacks there? Are there things he has to do throughout the week to get ready again for the next Sunday? That's kind of my thoughts on Mike McGlinchey. And then real quickly, I know you had mentioned George Kittle. Yeah, I'm kind of curious if we see Ross Dwelley, who I believe might be tight end 3 or even tight end 4 right now. I'm kind of curious if he comes in on more like pass catching downs, and if we don't see Charlie Warner like slide in on when we need more of a on the run plays, when we need someone to block a little bit more. Tyler Kroft is also I don't want to say, I guess I'll call him the X factor, because I think he's honestly a really solid pass catching tight end as well. I can't say too much about his pass blocking ability. I haven't watched him closely enough to really say about that. I just know he is a good seam tight end. He runs the seam really, really well. I think his hands are solid. I'm concerned about George Kittle's injury, but it's not something I'm over the top with right now, because I do expect him at this point to be back by week 2. So I'm concerned about it. It's something I keep an eye on. If he has to miss more than 2 weeks, then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. How long are we going to be out without that guy? Because, like you said, he is probably the best complete tight end in the game.
And, I'm beginning to think that this, and obviously, here's one thing I want to tell you, and whether you're listening to this later on or listening to this live, don't take tonight what happened with the Rams like as word for what the Rams are going to be this year. Like, the Rams could turn it around. I don't think they will personally, but don't take into account what happens in week 1 and week 2 and week 3 as this is who these guys are. Josh Allen could get hurt next week and the Bills could be completely out of the playoffs. They look like one of the best offensive teams tonight, but we haven't seen the other, 30 teams. The Rams look like they might have the worst offensive line in football, but it could improve. They could figure out stuff to make it work. So whatever happens on Sunday with Mike McGlinchey, don't be like, oh, well, he still sucks. He's still fucking terrible. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time for this offensive line to get, Kevin, that was towards you. It's going to take a little time for this offensive line to gel. And I think that Kyle knows that. Trent's going to be Trent. He's a complete professional. But the rest of the 4 on there, those are guys, Banks didn't start last year because they had Lakin. Brendel is kind of a spot starter in this league, now the starting center of this team. But maybe, it could just be that Brendel needed more reps and in time was good enough to become a starter. And, Burford looks like he might be a stud, so we'll see. And then Mike McGlinchey is still probably the best running, one of the best run blocking tackle in the entire NFL. And I think the 49ers are about to run the ball down everybody's throat, because how do you help a quarterback who's still kind of new? You run the ball. You get him short yardage situations. You don't force him to have to throw on 3rd and 20. Obviously it's going to happen this season, but the best thing the 49ers can do this year is to make sure that things are easy on Trey Lance throughout the season, that things are not being put on his shoulders constantly. And when they are put on his shoulders, I believe that he'll rise to the occasion because of the fact that his run game has helped him out so much. So don't take it. The Kittle thing, I'm a little worried about it personally. I'm a little worried about George Kittle because I believe that while he is a stud, when was the last time, Kevin, that we had George Kittle for 16 games?
Can't remember.
2018.
2018? Yeah, I was going to say 2018.
And to that point, it would be fair to say, potentially George Kittle's best days are behind him. Not saying that's the case, but it would be fair to start speculating.
I think when if this groin injury is not like a long-term thing and he's back next week, I think that he's going to be George Kittle and he's going to come out and he's going to rock it. But the thing is at this point, he hasn't, come out and rocked it yet. He's coming with the groin injury. He's probably not going to play. That is troublesome. And if he doesn't play a lot of games this year, the 49ers maybe need to think about getting rid of that contract and potentially replacing him with someone else or going tight end, in the earlier rounds. But obviously, like, the problem with replacing George Kittle is he is the face of the 49ers. And maybe that'll change with Trey Lance taking over and just becoming a stud and all that stuff. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are the face of this team. And so for those guys to go away, it would take pretty significant injury. And I don't think a groin injury is that. He could miss this week and then play every single game up to the Super Bowl. So, the weird things happen. I don't like the George Brittle thing. I'm never going to tweet that. You're never going to see me tweet that because it's disrespectful to someone who is probably the most important 49er in this era is George Kittle. And so we'll see what happens as the season goes on. But I think that it is worrisome that he's hurt again already and we haven't actually started playing games.
Yeah, I'll touch on George Kittle first real quick. I think it's a slippery slope, right? Because, well, first of all, I'll just say this.
By the way, the Rams are getting blown the fuck out. So
I haven't checked my phone. So
24-10.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Rams are ass. Same old sorry ass Rams. No. No. So, but
I got yelled at about that last year.
So George Kittle, right? Here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to play him this week. I think we'll be fine against the Bears. I don't think we're going to need him. It's going to be an inclement weather game, but you're going to run the football. Would you like to have George Kittle? Of course. I don't think this isn't the Arizona Cardinals when they were at the peak of their powers last year, right? This is a team that we know that we are better than, and it's not Lance's first start. So I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay this week. If we look good running the football, if we look like and we should look like a dominant football team against the Chicago Bears, I would actually consider also sitting him against Seattle because Seattle's also not a good team. and you need him 100% healthy when you go to Denver and play Russell Wilson and play that defense. That defense is loaded. The only reason why they weren't statistically better is because they didn't have a quarterback that could move the chains and keep their defense off the field. The Broncos, don't forget, the Broncos have a very good defense. I think people forget that. They're young, they're fast, and they're violent. So if you can get by the first 2 games without George Kittle, I'll give them a pass for that. I will say these kind of soft tissue lingering injuries are frustrating because there are stretches at times where sometimes we know we have to. There's a must-win game and George Kittle doesn't play. It's frustrating because you want your best players out there, right? So for me, just the bottom line with Kittle, if you can get through the first 2 games, don't play him. And the real season starts when we go to Denver because that's when we play in Denver, then we play the Rams and stuff like that. So that's when our tougher games come up. So if you can sit him for the first couple, I would do that. In terms of what we're going to do with him at the end of the year, I hope this doesn't rub anybody the wrong way, but this could be the last year that we see George Kittle in a 49ers uniform. And the reason why I say that is because I believe after this year, he's going to be 30 years old. He's had lingering injuries. Like Nate said, this will be the 3rd straight year that he has not been completely healthy for the entire season. What do we say all the time? Your best the best availability is durability, right? So I'm confident that the 49ers could find another option. Now, who that option is remains to be seen, right? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But of course, I want George Kittle to stay healthy. I want him to be a 49er for the entire part of his career. But we were bringing up last year when we were 3-5, potentially selling some players. And I remember talking about it with Jesse and stuff like that on Twitter Spaces, saying, is this the time to trade George Kittle for a younger player or a first-round pick? Because at the time, he was also injured and wasn't getting on the field when we needed him most. So for me, I would love to keep George Kittle. I'd love to have him on the team. He's one of my favorite players. But it's hard to justify keeping somebody around who's always injured and somebody that you rely on week in and week out. So I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I kind of went off the rails a little bit, but if that makes sense, then we can talk about that.
No, you're good. I mean, it's interesting just because it's so early, right? It's game 1. George Kittle misses 1 game, everything's fine, right? And so we can only talk about it so much. We'll see what happens next week against the Seahawks if they do sit him or whatever they end up doing. It'll be interesting. But I really want to talk to you guys for the last 10 minutes here. I'd like to talk to you. Who are some of your players to watch in this game on Sunday? We'll start with you, Jamal, again. So just a player on offense, player on defense, guys you want to watch. And then, as we close out, we'll do a prediction for the game, and then we'll do maybe a little bit of season predictions for fun as well. So, Jamal, who are some of the offensive, defensive guys you want people to watch on Sunday?
Yeah, for sure. And just real quick, if I could add one more thing just about the offensive lines. One thing that I've been talking about and kind of thinking about it, I haven't put it out there yet, but I wanted to put it out there now. When it comes to this offensive line, who do you guys think that they would rather have starting at quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance? Just answer that real quick.
With this offensive line?
Yes.
Oh, Lance.
Trey Lance. And 100%. I agree too. And I say that because it's not a sexy position to play, right? It's not a sexy position to watch. I don't think it's a sexy position even to play. I think that there are some people out there who truly understand the offensive line position and can talk about that. But the average fan, even some people who are really deep into football, couldn't talk to you about, the ins and outs of offensive line play. And I won't sit here and act like I can, but I can say this. When it comes to an offensive line, there's always, even the top ranked offensive line is going to have moments where those guys just make a snafu. They mess up or they miss a block. Pass rushers get through. We know how those things happen when you have Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback. He's either going to throw it away or, and I'm sorry to bring this up, he's going to close his eyes in a Super Bowl, chuck it up, and it's going to get intercepted.
Stafford just threw another interception, by the way.
Stafford threw an interception.
Stafford's got arm fatigue.
We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo do that. That's happened. When it comes
to
Trey
one
Lance,
touchdown and 2 interceptions tonight. That's bad. Sorry, continue, Jamal.
No, it's okay. Trey Lance has shown the ability to get out of the pocket. Also, he's shown the ability to be really aware within the pocket as well, too. So I'm only bringing that up just to say yes, I don't expect this offensive line to be a top 10 unit. I don't even necessarily expect it to be a top 12 unit. But if they can rank anywhere from 15 to 10, that's huge. And I mentioned that because I think with Trey Lance, they have that ability. Trey Lance has the ability to get them out of trouble sometimes, where this 49ers offensive line might rank 20th had Jimmy Garoppolo been the starting quarterback. I think they have every ability to be a top 15 offensive line because of Trey Lance and his ability to get out of trouble sometimes. That's because Trey Lance has a God-given ability with his legs sometimes to get out. Also, the mental smarts to get the ball out before a play breaks down as well, too. So I mentioned that because I think even though we have a first-year starting quarterback, I do think this team still has legitimate, real Super Bowl aspirations.
Absolutely.
And is it possible for an offensive line ranked 15th to go to and win a Super Bowl? Yes. Can a 20th rank do that as well too? Yeah, because we've just seen what the Cincinnati Bengals did last year. But I will always
I
stress
think they were dead last.
that is not and that is an anomaly. That is not something to expect, and I wouldn't want to bank on that either. I don't want to see Trey Lance get sacked that many times. I don't want to see that because that means higher chance of injury, and he could be potentially out for who knows how long. So I don't want to see that. But I did just want to mention that because I think that it's kind of an underrated thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. Yes, we talk about the offensive line, but I truly believe even just that 5 position ranking difference between 15 to 20 or even 25 for us and for the 49ers, should we stay healthy, I think that actually can be a difference in us getting to and possibly winning a Super Bowl. Now, you said you wanted to talk about just some players on the offense and defense that we're looking at, players to watch. One, obviously, Brandon Ayuk. I think a lot of us could talk about that, right? Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk connection. How does he come out and play? Well, I look at the Bears defense and I look at who are their starters, especially at corner. You've got Jalen Johnson, who I don't know. I actually have to go back and look, and maybe if one of you guys know the answer, you could say this as well too. I don't know if the Bears corners, and especially Jalen Johnson being their number one corner, I don't know if he travels, but I have to assume that he's going to this game at least because I think he will be lining up against Deebo Samuel, which is still right now our number one option. But then I look at Brandon Ayuk to have a potential breakout game because the Bears starting corner, or at least on their depth chart right now, their corner 2, I think listed is Kyler Gordon, who I liked coming out of the draft out of Washington. He's a rookie. I like him. He's not the most he's not the fastest guy, but he's a bigger corner. I think he's about 6'1". He's solid, 200, 205 pounds. He's probably in my opinion, he's best suited to be like a big nickel. I think ultimately that'll be where he probably sticks long term. But I think right now he honestly might be their corner too. Him in his first start, he could surprise some people. He might have a really good game, and maybe Brandon Ayuk doesn't go off. But I'm not banking on that. I'm banking on Brandon Ayuk to snatch some chains. I'm banking on Ayuk to take some ankles. I'm banking on Ayuk to be that guy this year who plays with his hair on fire. He knows Deebo Samuel just got paid. He's also with the quarterback that suits his skill set much better. I think this is the season that Brandon Ayuk says, no, I'm also a wide receiver 1. I need you guys to start putting your best wide receivers on me because Deebo Samuel, yes, he has the ability to move around and be a chess piece within this offense, but I'm him. My name is Brandon Ayuk. I'm that wide receiver, that traditional guy that this offense needs, that this offense can use with the quarterback like Trey Lance. So I think Brandon Ayuk, whether he has a 100-yard game or not, I don't think he's going to have 100 yards, but I think he does have probably like 90. I think he can legitimately have 90 receiving yards. That's one guy on the offense. Defensively, I'm really curious to see how George Odom plays. I think he can play really good. I think he can fill in. One, due to the fact that we are playing a Bears offense that is going to be limited. I don't expect them to take lots of shots deep. I know they have Velus Jones, who I just talked about, and I think he can get a shot or two, 1 or 2 plays like throughout the course of a game. But I think we see George Odom. I think we see Talanoa Hufanga. I think we see both of those guys play really, really well in the run game. I think we're going to get the Bears in a position to where they're probably going to need to throw more, but I think they're going to try to rely on their run to set up the throw. I just don't think that the Bears wide receivers are going to threaten us in any way with the corners that we have. I think George Odom and Talanoa Hufanga have really good games. They probably have a couple, I don't want to say highlight plays, but I think they could both have a couple highlight tackles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth with Ayuk. I mean, if Kyler Gordon is going to be lining up against BA and there's not significant downpour rain and it's there's it's not inclement weather, I think you could have a 150-yard game against Kyler Gordon. I mean, he was the best player in camp. Everybody's been saying that. He's been off the charts good. So Brandon Ayuk obviously is a fantastic pick. But I'm actually going to say a new addition to the Niners this year. I'm going to say Ray McCloud because we all know that Deebo Samuels can assume the wide back role. He's going to play outside. He's going to play in the backfield. But we saw McCloud do a lot of great things in the preseason from the wide receiver standpoint. I think he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest guy, but he's kind of that Swiss Army knife that we kind of need. Obviously, he did a phenomenal ankle-breaking route against the Packers in that game, right? So some of that stuff, and a lot of our guys have been saying that, a lot of the Kyle Shanahan offense, the wide receivers need to go over the middle, right? And McCloud seems like he can do that. And despite not being the biggest guy, not the fastest, but he seems like he's a tough guy and he's up to that task. So I'm going to say Ray McCloud. I think he could potentially have 3 or 4 catches, maybe average about 15, 16 yards a catch, and maybe even potentially get a few carries in this game. If they want to spell Deebo, obviously if they have a big lead, they don't want to be putting him in the backfield. So maybe McCloud takes some of those wide back, or maybe he's using some option. We saw them practice some triple option. Maybe he's in the backfield with Elijah Mitchell. Maybe we see him on some read option stuff. So I want to see how his versatility in a real game with Trey Lance, how that's going to be. So I'll take Ray McCloud on the offense. And then on the defense, obviously, I want to say Nick Bosa because I think he's going to have about 14 sacks this game. But I can't wait to see Charvarius Ward because playing for the Chiefs, we really didn't see him a whole lot. We saw him in the playoffs. But this guy is lockdown, man. I mean, he over the last 2 seasons has averaged a 38% man-to-man coverage where the quarterback is targeting him, that wide receiver, and man-to-man. He's only giving up 38% completion percentage. So that's elite. I mean, that's elite 101.
Yeah, I think that was second in the league over that stretch of time. Like he was second in the league. That's awesome.
So he's never played with this good of a defensive line. And when he's lined up against Mooney, I mean, he's probably going to Mooney's going to probably line up against Ward and Mosley, just depending on where they put him. Maybe even against Womack if they put him in the slot. I was going to pick Womack, but I want to see Charvarius Ward. But lined up against Darnell Mooney, their best receiver, I'm going to say bold prediction. I'm going to say he's not going to have more than 3 catches if he lines up against Ward. So nice. I'm excited to see Ward. He may not be getting a ton of interceptions, but I know that he's going to be playing sticky coverage this year, and this would be a great game for him to just show, I'm the best cover corner in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is this is a huge year for Charvarius Ward. He finally got the money he's been looking for. I think that it's going to be a huge part of having talented corners with a great pass rush. I think that that's a great point, Kevin. I think that the 49ers are set at every position on defense. I think that the Odom thing's interesting just because Jimmy Ward isn't going to be there to start. But if Odom can come out and look good in these 2 upcoming games, I think I'll feel a lot better about the 49ers. But it'll be interesting to see where things go if Jimmy Ward can come back and stay healthy. And honestly, if this secondary is as good as we think it is and the pass rush is as good as it is, the defense is not going to be a problem. I think that I still think, man, and I told you guys this both times we've talked the last couple of weeks. I think this is the best team in football. I think this is the best roster in football. I think this is the best overall team. When you're watching the Buffalo Bills, and you can say all you want about Josh Allen and how he's the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the league, his running game is fucking terrible. And when you don't have a running game, you cannot win a Super Bowl. It's impossible. You just can't do it. You cannot win a Super Bowl without a run game. And so when you think about how talented the 49ers are at running the ball, how talented they are on defense, Trey Lance just has to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're going to be studs. I mean, it's all just putting itself together. So I mean, my 2 guys on offensive defense, my offensive guy is Trey Lance. I think this is the ultimate come out fuck you game. Come out and just beat a bad team, embarrass them, step on their fucking neck, and get out of there with a W. And shut up all the haters for 1 week. That's my number one thing on offense. I want Trey Lance to come out there and fucking embarrass him. That's what I want more than anything. I want him to tell Mike Florio and Mike Silver and fucking this guy and that guy and all these dudes just to shut the hell up. Stop talking about me, because I'm here now. This is my football team. And
but it's just the Bears, bro. It's just the Bears.
It's just the Bears. It's just the Bears. I'm sure it's just the Bears. Then it'll just be the Seahawks. Then it'll just be the Broncos. And it'll just be the Rams. Oh, the Rams aren't that good this year. Okay. All right. You can keep talking shit all year, and then this kid's just going to keep winning. So Trey Lance is my guy on offense. And then on defense, I mean, I said it. Nick Bosa is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I would put $1,000 on it right now if I could. Nick Bosa is going to be the Defensive Player of the Year. There's no fucking doubt in my mind that Nick Bosa is going to be the Defensive Player of the Year. He's the best defensive end in the league, bar none, because Aaron Donald's a D tackle. He's better than TJ Watt. I understand TJ Watt had more sacks last year, but he was on a team with a lot less talent around him on defensive line. Nick Bosa has some of the best defensive linemen in the world, but I think this year is the year that Nick Bosa just is, because it's a contract year. He's an absolute stud. He's going to try and get as much money from the 49ers as possible because you got John Lynch already out there saying, yeah, we're going to pay Nick Bosa. All right, you're going to pay me? Well, you're going to pay me a lot because I'm going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Talk about $100 million guaranteed. That's what he's going to get.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Starting
Especially
point.
if he wins Defensive Player of the Year. So, I mean, it's good. Your two most important players are Trey Lance and Nick Bosa for me personally. I understand, we can talk about the rookies, the younger guys, all that stuff. Trey Lance has to come out and just shut the fuck out of everybody. That's his goal. It has to be to shut up everybody. Jimmy's not playing. Here's why. Touchdown. Here's a great throw. Here's a throw Jimmy can't make. That kind of stuff. And so my prediction for the Bears game, 31-7 San Francisco. And that's if it doesn't rain. If it rains, then a little different. But 31-7, the Bears get one touchdown. The 49ers are coming out, and they're coming for blood. I mean, the Rams look awful, and the Niners have to be sitting there just like licking their chops like, oh, baby. And I understand Buffalo might be pretty good, but the Rams look pretty dog shit.
I got one bold prediction for you, and then I'll also give you my score real quick. So I'll start with that part. My score prediction, I actually posted on Twitter last night. I think it'll be 27-17 Niners, but I don't think it'll actually be that close. I think they get a garbage time field goal, not touchdown. I think they get a garbage time field goal to make it 17. I give Justin Fields enough credit because he is so talented that they can score 2 touchdowns, because I do think that Trey Lance or someone on the offense will somehow have some sort of a turnover, and it could potentially happen. I don't want to say in the red zone or anything like that, but on our side of the field. So that may potentially give them a shorter field where they get at least 3 points somewhere throughout the game. I think that they're an NFL team, so I'll give them 2 touchdowns, but I think it's truly not that close. My bold prediction, though, I think the 49ers offense probably goes for 400 plus yards. And I think bold prediction is Trey Lance still throws for 300 yards. I know I'm not expecting this to be a pass first team by any means. I actually think they throw for 300, and I think they run for 100 plus yards as well too. I just look at this Bears team, and while yes, they're for their defense, it's still one of the worst rosters, if not honestly, this might be the worst roster in the league. And I'm not even trying to be rude. I'm just being honest about it. I actually think the Lions are getting better. They've got some players there, and they draft high every year, so they've got some blue chippers as well. I look at their corners, and I don't see how we don't eat, even if Trey Lance is playing off of the run game, which I expect him to do. Jalen Johnson is a good corner, but he's not. I can't put him in elite yet. I do think he's a star. I think he's good. He's real good, so he'll have a couple plays here and there. But outside of that, they just drafted Kyler Gordon, and he's their CB2 by default, because you have Kindle Vildor. And if I can remember correctly, I believe Kindle Vildor was the one in coverage last year when Jimmy threw the ball deep to Deebo Samuel that set up his rushing touchdown just before the half. I believe it was Kindle Vildor in coverage on that play. I might be wrong, but I think it was. That's their depth. Kindle Vildor, as Kevin had just said earlier, Lamar Jackson, and then I believe Jalen Jones. I think he's a rookie as well too. I just look at those guys, and then they have Tavon Young, who's on IR right now too, so he won't be playing. He's played in the league for the Ravens, so he's been around. He's more of a nickel guy. But I just look at that and I say, man, if Jaquan Brisker, safety they just drafted, who I was actually really high on, that would have been a dream to draft him. If him and Eddie Jackson, if they play really well, they may be able to mask some of these the weakness that they have at corner. But if they don't,
Stafford just threw another interception.
If they don't, this game I don't think is going to be really good. I can see Trey Lance off of just like play actions, boots, things like that. I can see him having chunk plays to where he still throws for 300 yards. That's my bold prediction.
I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, so I'll start with my score prediction and then get into maybe what I think Trey Lance could do. If it's not raining, I agree with you, Nate. I mean, this should be like a 31-6 victory. I mean, we should just go in and beat the shit out of them. We should just establish ourselves as, hey, we're the best team in the league, like we think that we are, right? I mean, I think all three of us believe that we have the best team in the NFL, and we're not just saying that because we're homers, but because we actually know football and we study the shit. We talk about it every day. So if it's inclement weather and it starts to rain and there's some wind, that could be the great equalizer. I like last year, I thought we were going to beat the Colts. Turned out there's a monsoon in Santa Clara, and they ended up kicking our ass. So it's like, it's the great equalizer. I still think we're going to win. I wouldn't say like a 4-score victory, but I'll say kind of right around what Jamal said. I'll say like 23-10 or something like that. It's a little bit closer, but again, I still think we dominate in all aspects of the game. What I can't wait for is, if the Chicago Bears try to go like single high and we have Danny Gray out there, like we'll see exactly what happened against the Packers. I mean, what are you going to do when you have Deebo Samuel going over the middle? You have Ayuk taking the outside corner and keeping, maintaining his zone. And then you have Danny Gray who runs 4.3 at 6'2" running down the field. So what I can't wait, I mean, if that happens, I agree, Nate. I would love to just, if it's perfect weather, I would love for Kyle Shanahan to just be like, you know what? Fuck that. Everybody thinks we're going to run. I'm going to throw 30 times today, and Lance is going to throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. Like, I would love that. Could that potentially happen? Of course it could. Is it most likely going to happen due to weather? Probably not. But if any weather, I would love for us to just throw the ball around the field. Like, I can't for us to run the ball. We got Elijah Mitchell, toss left. We got Ty Davis Price run right. And then we have a 3rd and 1 at the 40-yard line. Oh, well, what do we know? Play action Danny Gray on a 60-yard touchdown. Like, that's what I want to see. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But I'll say bold prediction. I'll say Lance, kind of on the same lines as you, Jamal. I'll say 350 total yards and 4 touchdowns. I'll say for Lance.
Ooh, that's bold. I'll say one thing that you just said there, Kevin, that I'll push back just a little bit. I don't think that it's Kyle Shanahan's MO or even necessarily in his DNA just to like throw the ball 35 plus times. It is if you want to make a statement, like you said. I actually agree with that. If you want to make a statement and just say, you know what, I'm all in on this kid and he's going to go crazy.
He should. What's been the talk?
But I don't think
the last 2 weeks.
I think the run game is the basis of his whole everything in his offense kind of spans out from the run game. So getting to each zone, outside zone, inside zone, sets up the play actions, the boots, and I think he wants to throw the ball as well too. But even go look at Matt Ryan in his MVP season. They had the 2 running backs, Booker and I forgot the other guy, but they ran the ball often. It's just that Matt Ryan is a really good, or at the time was a top 10 quarterback and knew where to go with the ball. He knows how to use the weapons he has. Long story short, he's much more efficient than Jimmy Garoppolo ever was. He's a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo ever was, which made that offense very efficient, very good. You could pass and run the ball. And he had Julio Jones, right? So you have weapons, but you also have that run game, which I think is the basis of everything that they want to do. With Trey Lance, and then I'll let you take over here. With Trey Lance, could it potentially get into a situation where 2-3 years down the road, he's doing some of that stuff to where maybe he is throwing 27 to 30 times a game? I can see that, but I just think Kyle Shanahan is so stubborn. Not just stubborn. I think it's also his philosophy to run the ball, to set up the pass, but also Trey's going to have to prove it to him first, and that starts now in these games, if that makes sense.
Oh, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and I know we're kind of going long on time here, but I mean, this would be the perfect game to just look. If you're getting the looks, if you are seeing something in the defense, why not go for the kill early and just put to bed all the narratives? Because I don't know about you guys, I'm sick and tired I'll continue to do it, but I'm tired of defending Lance on Twitter. I want this should be his coming out game. And if he can't because of the play calling, I'm confident he could do it now. Like you're saying 2-3 years, I'm confident that he could do it now. Some people think he can't do it because he's an unknown. I think he could do it personally. But to me, this would be the game to just say, you know what? Fuck everybody. Jimmy Garoppolo is here as our backup. He didn't want to nobody wanted him. And we have Trey Lance, a top 10 quarterback in the league. This would be the week to do it. Now, if you're playing, if let's say the Niners were playing the Bills tonight or something, then I would say maybe not. You're going to want to try to control the clock and try to control Josh Allen, play good defense, run the ball. But you're playing the Bears, man. You have some room for error. So if he throws an interception or something like that, so what? You're not playing, a top 5 team in football.
I can't play with my food. I can't play with my food. This game counts. We need to win.
The Niners 10 o'clock.
The Niners have more room for error in this game than any other game in the season. So why not be aggressive early and show everybody in the league that we're winning the Super Bowl this year?
Absolutely. 10 o'clock, Sunday morning, run them out of their own stadium. Trey Lance come out, embarrass everybody on Twitter who's talked shit about him this offseason. If they want to check out your stuff, Kevin, how can they do it?
So I'm obviously at the top or at the bottom, is the left part of my screen, at SF9 or Niner49 on Twitter. I'm also writing for Stadium Rant, part of the Niners Empire, so you can go out and check out my articles. I'm just starting to dabble into that stuff, so go ahead and check it out. Send me a DM if you like my writing. If tell me if you hate it. I'm trying to get better. I'm new. So you can find me on those 2 platforms going forward.
Jamal, how can they check out your stuff?
Yeah, once again, thanks for having me on, Nate. Always enjoy talking with you guys. I know we can talk about this stuff for hours because we do talk about this stuff for hours. But no, you guys can find me at Young Jaw. So my name right here, except for my name on Twitter, has a lowercase a. So Young J-A, Young Jaw 49er. That's my name on Twitter. You can find me on this platform weekly. We usually do shows on Tuesday. Myself and Nate. Obviously, today is Thursday, so it's a little bit different right now. But I do a show every week with Nate on Tuesday. I'll be starting up with Amin the Dream here pretty soon as well, too, doing a show every other week with him. You can find me on those 2 things right now. If I do anything else or if I'm starting to dabble in other things, I'll be sure to let you guys know.
And you can find me at Niner849. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, which you're watching this on, or if you're not watching this on, it's Niner Nate's Nonsense on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. We're going to give you content all off season. The schedule is going to be a little weird because my new job is different and I'm a lot more tired than I used to be. But we will be doing content all season, so don't you worry about that. Enjoy the game. Go Niners. I got 2 things to say, actually. I'm going to do 2 things. The same old sorry-ass Rams. Hype train never stops. We'll see you next time.